how we live our life is usually based on the questions that we ask, the places that we take ourselves, the experiences that we have inform a lot of the things that cause us to be who we are. And when we have tried to walk in a certain path and we realize it doesn't work for us, what happens? We begin to question. We begin to find deeper truths that cannot come out until we go deep. So for me, anyone who knows me, I'm very passionate about inner growth and living from the inner versus living from the outer. Because what I've realized through my life is living on the surface level, and that's been superficial, makes you so empty and so unhappy because you're just trying to follow a script that someone else has created. And that doesn't fit you because each and every one of us is uniquely created with certain traits and certain qualities that nobody else has, with certain responsibility, with a certain purpose that nobody else has that. And you must make it your mission to uncover that. Now, for me, it has been, I'll call it, that was 2010, we're in 2024. So 14 years of trying to break away from the matrix, as I call it, because that is what society has created, and that's what a lot of us are living, trying to achieve certain certain levels of success, certain aspects of you that you feel will make you happy, will create a life that will get you to be happy. And unfortunately, those are the boxes. Society has created so many boxes and made us, all of us, fit in those boxes. And for me, 14 years ago, those boxes, I had tried to tick all of them. And somehow I was very unhappy because I realized I had ticked like all the boxes that society had sold to me and I had bought into it. And that, when I talk about society, is everyone around us. Like, it's what we're all, what are you pursuing? And really, it's the pursuit of happiness. And I want you to honestly think about it. What you're doing today, everything that you're doing, what is the goal? Why do you do what you do? Pause. Why do you really do what you do? When you wake up every morning and the program that you follow from the moment you open your eyes to live in the house or not live in the house, why do you do that? And it's a question a lot of people don't ask. So you find a lot of people are living robotic lives. It's like a button that a remote control, play, pause, stop when you go to bed. But do we consciously take the effort to really question the activities that we're doing? So even when you're looking for a job, when you're doing a business, why are you doing it? Is it to put food on the table? To pay the bills? Now, for me, 14 years ago, I came to a place in my life and I was at a crossroads. And that's what I began to ask myself. why am I doing what I'm doing? And at the time, I was working in the airline, and somehow I was very unhappy and I hated my job. Like, I was so dissatisfied. And that made me a very nasty person. That made me very edgy. Like, anything on my job, if anyone dared cross my path, they didn't get a pleasant me. So I was tired, and I had just an inner conversation with myself, and I began to ask. And in this conversation, I was conversing with God at one point, and I asked God, is this really the meaning of life? Like, there has to be more. And I felt there was more, but I didn't know what more was. But I just felt what I had been doing until that point was not it. There had to be more. So it took me to really dig deep, to listen. And at the time, I had no answers. I just had a lot of questions and a disconnect because my external was glam. It was a picture perfect life. I have everything. I had everything that people crave and work so hard for. I had an amazing, well, it was a good job because people loved the job, just not for me at that time. I had done it for so many years and I felt down. I had kids, beautiful kids. I had the home, a beautiful home. I had the family, I had a husband. And I looked like the epitome of success. People wanted my life. But what just didn't make sense was the disconnect. How is it that people are envious of my life? And I, who's living this life, I'm unhappy. There's something that's just not right. And this is the point I decided that I needed to step away and unlearn so that I could find the deep meaning of life. And at this point, I remember I told God, I had a conversation with God, and I said, I know there's something that you have for me, but I don't know what it is. And usually, as a safe bet, again, societal things, we always have plan A, B, and C because we take control of our lives. We want to create the life that society has told us is success, is happiness. So we are living in pursuit of happiness. So happiness is a destination we're all working so hard. And I felt at that point I had been pursuing happiness, but then it had eloped because the very things they had told me was happiness, I had them, but I just wasn't happy. So it wasn't right. So I decided to tell God, it's fine, I hear you, and I'm going to take a step of faith. And at that time, the step of faith I was willing to take was leave my job. By the way, at the time, I had been studying. I was in uni, finishing my undergrad. I had also done a diploma. And at the same time, I was working crazy hours. So you can understand, I was exhausted. And at the same time, I was raising kids because my son then was like in 2009. My son born in 2004 was 5, and my daughter who was born in 2007 was 2. So you can see, and I had an older son, my stepson. He was like, I think Mike is a 96 born. So it had been crazy, and I felt I was exhausted. I had just been doing and racing, and now I just was tired. I was exhausted, and I needed to just step away from everything. So what I did is, yes, I quit my job. Crazy, right? Yes. Everyone thought, you're mad, you're crazy. Look, you have a family, you're quitting your job. Do you have a plan B? I said, no, I don't have a plan B. My plan B was to go and uncover life's truth And the truth at that time that I really wanted to find out was, who was Pauline? And Pauline, in my eyes, not in society's eyes, because I felt by then I had been the Pauline that my parents had told me I needed to be. My family, that's my siblings, my friends, the senior people in my life, the teachers, the elders, my friends, my children, my husband then, and my friends. And I was just exhausted, and I said, no, this cannot be it. So I embarked on a journey to find Pauline in my eyes. And what did that require? It required me to break away from a lot of things, and that was to unlearn. And I can promise you, the hardest thing for an adult is unlearning, because you must unlearn to be able to learn. You have to empty yourself so that you can receive. And unfortunately, we try and just fill ourselves. And you can imagine, it's like you have a glass which has like oil, and then you're trying to fill in some juice or some tea. Like, they will never mix, because they're two different elements with two different consistencies. And this is exactly what we're trying to do with our lives. We're trying to fill in things that we have discovered, and it doesn't settle well because they're two different consistencies. Frequencies are different. Now remember, life has a frequency. Everything is energy. Thoughts, feelings are all frequency. And you cannot mix different frequencies. They cannot communicate. So this is what we're trying to do. We want to change our life by trying to embody two different frequencies. And that won't happen. You have to let go so that you can be able to communicate, and the two can be able, because it's a firing, it's the same thing. For you to create a new way of being, you have to keep doing it to create a new neural pathway, so that that becomes your new way of being. So in that space, I knew what I needed to do was unlearn. And it wasn't easy, but I was ready to, because having lived that, I was willing to do anything to find something that connected with me. Because this was a deep conviction. Because I realized until that point, I had been living from a lot of my mind. And that's, my mind is based on, remember, our mind is always in survival mode. And in survival mode, what can it be? We live from fear. So everything we do is fear-based. And for me at that point, it just didn't make sense, and I was tired. I needed to embody a different frequency so that I could experience life differently. So I chose that path. And I want to encourage you, if you feel things are not working, if it's a relationship, if it's not a job, and you will hear a lot of noise in the background, that's from people. And it's always fear-based. And I want you to realize, from fear, you cannot create anything that will bring you peace and joy. You must be willing to break away from the matrix, which is fear-driven, which makes us do things based on what people are saying. And when people are in the negative, what is it that they're saying? They're saying things that make you question yourself. And that's how you find, even in relationships, when you feel like a relationship is not working. And for me, I'm a perfect example. At a point when I left my marriage because I felt it wasn't working. And I couldn't question it. I knew deep down, like, we had grown apart. We were different people. At the time, I had no, like, tangible evidence as to why it wasn't working. I just felt we were two different people, because I felt like I was going north, he was going south, and I was always trying to get him to catch up, to be on the same wavelength with me, and I was exhausted. And I was like, you know what? For me, iconoclastic, meaning I disrupt things, and I am very open-minded. And I remember at the time, I even told my ex-husband I was willing to let go the aspect of our marriage, which was being lovers, and just retain the friendship and the co-parents. And that's a story for another day. So anyway, for me, I think growing up, what I have learned about myself is I go deeper to question things. Like, even as I grew up, I remember, even at the time I was getting married, my parents were like, I grew up because what I saw as marriage with my mom and my dad just wasn't right for me. And I remember I grew up because of that, because that was the first example of what marriage is. And I felt, that's not the kind of life that I want. So I grew up telling my folks I wasn't going to get married. So you can imagine the shock when I find this guy, and I go and I'm telling my dad, getting married. The first thing, my dad looked at me and he was shocked, and he's like, are you serious, Pauline? Whoa, why? But I mean, you told us you were never gonna get married. What changed? And we know you. And I told my dad life happened and this is me now. I have decided otherwise. And my dad never took it very well. He wasn't for it. And he had a lot of things that he advised me, and he told me about why I shouldn't get married, and I got upset. And this is another lesson that I would like to share, because it's a personal journey for me. The energy in which I got into marriage was energy of force. Like, I forced my way into this marriage because everyone around me, and that's my family, and my dad for that matter, because my dad and I were very close, and my dad didn't feel like this marriage was right for me. And he had a lot of reasons, but I'm a fighter. My whole life I have fought. And the result, what do you think you get from fighting? Because that's the energy, it's a force. You force to go against the current. What do you think you get out of it? Pain and suffering. And this is a key thing that I want to share in today's video. Like, society, again, is another way that it has taught us to fight for what we believe in, to fight for things, fight for relationships, fight for jobs. And I want you to just take a moment and think about it. Look at nature, because nature is our biggest teacher, like I've come to learn. Nature doesn't fight. Like, say for example, if we were to look at the sun doesn't fight to shine. It just shines. And you can see how it nourishes us with its rays. The trees don't fight to grow, they just grow. The plants don't fight to grow, they just grow. Nature just happens. Water doesn't fight to flow, it just flows. And when you try and get in its way by fighting it, so that means you're going against the flow, what happens? You get injured, you get hurt. People even lose their lives. Hence the reason why you find people will drown. Because when you fall in water, you're not supposed to fight. You just surrender to it. And when you surrender to it, what happens? It holds you, because your weight, you're heavier than the water, so it keeps you up. But when you fight, you fight with it, what do? You begin to sink. Because that's the energy. It's two different frequencies. It is at peace, and you're in a different mode, which is fighting. And that's how we have been living most of our lives, fighting. And the result is pain and suffering. And my journey has really taught me that. Now, I'm all over the place. Don't worry. Just go with the flow. I mean, for me, I speak with the flow. I go with the flow. So a lot of things that I have come to put together is a few weeks ago, I went for a retreat, a silent retreat, 10 days. And it's 10 days of absolute silence. Even with the other meditators who are there, you don't speak. You don't speak to no one. You don't speak to your family. You don't take your phone. The only thing that you have is to be with yourself and to observe everything that keeps coming up. Now you can imagine silence, a few minutes is manageable. An hour maybe, 2 maybe. But silence in 10 full days. Ooh, your mind goes crazy. But that was the best gift that I actually gave myself. It put a lot of things in perspective for me. And being a transformation coach, I realized a lot of stuff I knew here, but I had not embodied. I had not owned it and put it in my life, walked it. And this was what the 10 days was, helping me piece together my life and everything that has happened and see the blessings of especially those challenging, tough times. Because for me, I'm grateful, so grateful for all the tough times that I have experienced in life, because that's what made me to be one with life, to be grateful, just to be. And when I was not trying, I was the happiest. And that's a skill I learned. Having met my guru in 2019, because what he does, Paramahamsa Vishwananda, as we call him Guruji, he teaches you tough life lessons. And what he gives, because he's like a mother, gives tough love. And all of us, we don't like tough love. But tough love is what we need to really grow and be the best that we can be, and we're here to be. And Paramahamsa Vishwananda's mission here is to open the human hearts to experience divine love. Because we're an embodiment of God. God lives in us. But that's what we know mentally with our minds. But do we really experience it? And that's what the 5 years since I met Guruji, he has been teaching me. It's to really have a moment-to-moment relationship with God, where God is the number one. Like everything I do is about God. I do it not for me, but for Him. So I surrender all my action, all my thoughts to Him. Because God is life for me. Like He's just not a concept that is out there. I have experienced Him day to day in my life. Like I can actually give you so many stories of how God has come alive in my life. Like I have a conversation with God day to day. Like my friend, like just be able to talk to Him like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, this is happening. And not that I'm looking for questions, because for me, I come from a background where I was raised Christian, and God was someone that I learned to do business with. Like, God, if you do this for me, this will happen. I promise I will do. It was always a transactional relationship. And I felt like God was so far. Like he was just like, where is he? I can't hear him. Can I? I mean, so meeting Guruji, like I knew because I cried. And I cried from the joy of my soul knowing that it had arrived. What it had been seeking, finally I had found it. So this was the beginning of transformation in my journey. And I had to let go a lot of things. And number one, to embody God and to experience God day to day, it will humble you because you cannot be from an ego space. An ego is where I can do this, I know how to do this, I will chase this, I know what to do, I have everything, it is my ability, it is my qualifications, and da 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 da. I mean, hey, I'm an independent woman, I can do that, I don't need ABCD. And he had to take away all that and leave me bare with nothing, literally. Like anything that was embodied by I, my, me, he broke that and took that away. And you can imagine, at the time, it looked so painful because who was I at that point? Remember, my journey was always to find Pauline. And I had discovered who Pauline was. But in this phase of my life, with him in my life, what he began to teach me is I was not an embodiment of what this body is. I was my soul. The soul is who we all are. But do we have a relationship with our soul? Because God lives in us. And where he lives is our soul. But did I really connect with my soul? And if you've heard a story of we all have 4 wives, and the one who's the most malnourished, who's always there with you, is your soul, who we do not pay attention to, but is always there with us from the day we are born to the day we leave this planet, this dimension. And the moment you begin to connect with your soul, a lot of life's truth come alive. But that requires you to be humbled. And the one thing I'll break your bubble is, if you're very proud, very arrogant, pride is a sign of weakness. You're only proud because it's a shadow. The other side of pride is weakness. It's not strength. You'll be surprised. Yeah. So ego has to be broken for you to be humble. And humility is strength. Humility is not weakness. Humility is strength. When you are in a space of where you think you know, that is a bigger sign to tell you you don't know. And you feel you know because you're in your ego. And that was a lot of me. And he began to show me in my life. He took away anything that I remember at one time. Even him taking away my jobs, my businesses, my investments, and I was left bare with nothing. And I was like, okay, this is too much. I can't. And I tried. Every time this doesn't work, I always had a solution, plan B. But remember, when I allowed myself to embody and be with God and have a relationship with God, what did I say? I remember even sitting down and having a conversation with him, and I told him, you know, right now, you're my father, you're my husband, and you're the father to my children. And I remember he asked me, do you believe that? I said, of course I believe. Then he said, you have nothing to worry. I'll take care of you. But I had that with my mind. But did I really hear it with everything? And he had to put me to the test where everything was taken away. And I would start this business and it would fall. And I remember at one time in my last capital, and this was like money I had just made from a particular investment. I was like, okay, because it was just after COVID, let me invest it so that I can have some income monthly. and I put it in an investment, and it was going well. For 3 months, I was able to get good returns. But after 3 months, guess what happened? The business went under, and the owner, the company we had invested in, they disappeared with all our monies, and we were many. And that was all that I had. Oof, boy, that was tough. And I remember asking God, like, seriously, is this it? Like, why are you doing? I'm trying. And just pause on that. So, what I'm going to tell you, there's a Hindu story. This Hindu story, sorry, I have to, ooh, my laptop is warning me battery low. Sorry, there we go. So, this story will put in perspective the story that I'm sharing with you about everything being taken away. So it's a Hindu story. So in this temple, people keep coming, and Krishna is the god. Krishna is the main god for Hindus. So in this temple, there's a statue of Krishna. And everyone, just like everywhere you go, if you go to churches, wherever you go to pray, there's a place you go to find your comfort, and to just pour your heart. So in this temple, people keep walking in, walking out to talk to Krishna. So, and they all lay their problems on Krishna, the statue. So every day, people would come, and there's a queue to just go and talk to Krishna, cry out their problems, ask for help. So there was a cleaner in this temple. So he always, as he was cleaning, he'd hear everyone coming, and all they're sharing is their problems. Then one day he was like, oh my God, this guy must be so tired. Krishna must be so tired. He needs a break. So one evening, as he's logging out after work, he goes in front of Krishna and he says, Krishna, I believe you need a break. Like, I've watched you. You don't rest 24 hours. It's people coming to give you their problems. You need a break. Can I take over for a few days, even just for 24 hours, so that you can just rest? And Krishna said, are you sure? He said, yes. So Krishna said, okay, we'll swap roles. So you come here and you will listen, but on condition, do not act. And the guy was like, cool, I'll just be here listening. I will not interject or say anything or answer. He said, cool. So they swapped. So Krishna became the cleaner, and this guy took over to be Krishna. So the next day, people came, and he's listening to all their stories. So the first person that came that day was this rich guy. He had a briefcase with a lot of money, and he came to say, thank you, Krishna. You have blessed me with wealth, so much money. I'm so grateful. All my prayers have been answered. You keep on just blessing me with abundance. And after he finished, he forgot the briefcase. So next came a poor guy, like this old man, like he was so poor. And all he had nothing. So he just came to tell Krishna, he had a coin. So I have one coin. So I'm going to offer you this coin. But all I say right now, I have no food for my children. Like, it's been so hard and I don't know what to do. I have no job. And thank you for always taking care of us. Thank you for always being there with us. Even when it's hard, you've always held us together. So he finished, he gave his coin. And as he stood, what did he see? The briefcase with all the money. And he opened it. It was millions, and he carries. And he's like, oh my God, Krishna, thank you so much. And he left. Now, after was a sailor. Now, this sailor came to seek refuge. And he asked Krishna to actually get him away because he felt like people were after him and he wanted protection. So he was supposed to be going on a sail like in a few days. I think it was in a few hours, and he just felt like so, like he was feeling like something bad was about to happen, so he came to just ask for help and protection from Krishna. So during these prayers, as he's finished his prayers of protection and he's thanking, so who shows up? The rich man shows up with cops, and he starts accusing the sailor of stealing his money. And the sailor is like, what do you mean? I just came here, I finished my prayers, and I'm leaving. He said, no, 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 no. Arrest this guy. He's the one who stole all my money. So before he could say anything, the policeman took him and he was put in jail. So this guy interjects. Remember, the condition for him to step in for Krishna was not to interject. So he begins to speak to the cops and says, no, 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 you got this all wrong. Da, da, da. This guy is innocent, da, 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 da. But they had already arrested the guy. So the day ends. And the evening, they're here to swap back their places. So the sweeper comes out of Krishna's like embodiment of the statue, and Krishna takes over. But before this, Krishna is like, remember, what did you do? I asked you not to interject in anything because you don't understand how things play out. I am in control of everything. I'm in control of everyone's life. Everything that happens in everyone's life, I decided. Now you interjecting, you were breaking the flow of what their life was. Now I'll tell you, that rich man, that money he had stolen from the poor people. So it went back to the poor man who was part of the people that the rich man had really misused and stolen their wealth from them. That's how he was repaid. The poor man got back what was worth theirs. Now the sailor was supposed to be going on a sail, and he came to me to pray for protection. So this time, him being put in jail was the time that the boat he was supposed to be in capsized. Now, the moral of the story: nothing that happens to you because it wants to harm you, because you're being punished. No. Everything happens for us, not against us. And my journey with Guruji has taught me that. And the toughest times in my life were the times I was built to really see God and experience God. And for me, in these times when he took away everything, people showed up and were there. They held my hand and my children's hand. People paid their school fees. People provided for us. And it was hard for me because from a prideful place, I would never ask for help from anyone. But it took him taking away everything from me to sit and surrender to him and experience him provide for me in the way that he wanted, not in the way that I wanted. And that was breaking my ego. That was humbling me. Now I'll tell you, because of my spiritual path and journey, I have learned so much, and I embody life from a place of, I go to the lessons of life. And the one thing I don't do is I don't do superficial. I don't do inauthentic. So I have aligned myself with like-minded people where we speak about deep stuff. When you are in a very superficial level, it's about how you look, it's what you want, and it's I, my, dada. And for me, I just don't have the appetite for that. And I find, like, because I am now in a community of like-minded people where our mission is to surrender and allow God to use us for whatever it is that he wants us to use us. So this is a challenge I want to ask you. And I started by asking it. Ask yourself, like, why do you do what you do? Because I'll tell you, what you need to begin to turn to experience life. Because even in the toughest times for me in this last years, I have been the happiest. Happier than, remember the story I told you? I had a picture perfect life. I wasn't happy. But this time, I have been the happiest, to a point of people thought I was crazy. Like, people will be like, Pauline, what is it? Like, we don't understand. We can see your life around you is falling apart. But I say that you're so happy. Like, and it is genuine happiness coming from here. Like, it's an overflow. Because there is joy. And it's because I stopped living from fear and I live from love. Any action that I take is driven by my love for something or for the mission that I want to do. Now, I am passionate about helping people find truths and find lasting happiness, lasting success. And I'll tell you, you won't find it from the external. Because what society has programmed us is everything we need is out of us. But guess what? Everything that we need to live the best life is in us and it's seeking us. But we have to connect with it. And remember, like I said earlier, you must empty yourself so that you can begin to bring it out. And it can begin to connect with you because you have to be in the same wavelength for it to find you. Frequency. It's about frequency. Words, colors, thoughts all have a frequency. And they're always looking for similar frequency to connect with. So what frequency are you living your life from? And are you surprised at the results that you have in your life today? The switch and the answers that you're seeking are in you. So for me, as a transformation coach, what I want to work with people who are ready, who are at crossroads and are ready to embody the truth of life and forge their own happiness regardless of the ups and downs of life. Because remember, in this life that we live, everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. So if you're forcing to hold on to the happy moment that you have right now and trying to do everything to retain things as they are, what you end up creating for yourself is pain and suffering. Because you have to be able to become an observer and witness life. And when you witness, what you begin to learn is to be detached. So I know you live your life with attachments. You want your kids to be in a certain way. You want your job to be in a certain way. You want your husband or your wife to be in a certain way. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend to be in a certain way. And you do everything humanly possible to control situations. Remember, again, I told you the force. If you're using force to create anything, the results, pain, misery, and suffering. Now, if you're ready to let go, pain and suffering, and experience the beauty, the joy of your life, because you're here to experience the ultimate of happiness and joy, not to pursue it, because happiness is not something you find, you're following, you're chasing. It is for you to uncover. It's for you to be. This is now me as your coach telling you, sign up and I'll help you find real happiness despite the ups and downs of life. Now, I hope this was good and it served you. Well, unfortunately, you can see when I begin to talk, I don't even see what is happening in the background. I don't know who's there, but I believe who needs to hear this message has had it. I love you. I send you a lot of joy. And I want you to realize that life is here supporting you. But if you do not connect with life, and if you don't see it as your partner, then you will struggle through it. You will blame it. You will listen to the noise, and the noise will bring you down. And all I need to tell you is, I am here to support you. I've been it. I've had life's ups, lows, mediums, all of it I've experienced. And I'm grateful for it all because the lessons it's taught me, who it has made me, I'm grateful. And because of this journey, I am writing my book. And my book is a journey home. And it's a memoir of discovering universal truths and finding lasting joy, success, despite the changes of seasons in our life. Because guess what? Seasons change. It's not a guarantee that you'll always be happy. Happiness comes and goes. But how do you maintain everlasting happiness that doesn't change despite the seasons of your life changing? People will come and go. That's life. Jobs will come and go. That's life. You will grow old. You can't change that. Even if you put the most makeup, you can't defy nature. We will all grow old. But what mindset do you have that being a year older is bad? I'm growing old. And again, it's an embodiment of who you are as a person. Because like every year, for me, the older I get, the more I appreciate life, the more I have tolerance. My tolerance for, my bandwidth for hypocrisy, my bandwidth for pretense, for inauthenticity, for facades, living, surface, just dwindle. I have little bandwidth for that. And I don't tolerate, and I'm not apologetic about the things that I believe in that are most important to me. And that's, for me right now, is having and living a life that every single day God is my partner in moment to moment. Like everything I do, the outcome is to Him. What I do, I don't reap any success out of it because I surrender it back to Him. And for as long as you are hitting your chests for what you have achieved, it shall be futile because you will always be empty, because it will never be enough. Because remember, the more and more you do, the less and less fulfilled you feel. Because remember, our mind, the more it has, the more it wants. So you get exhausted. So if you're ready to turn around your life and live a life that you sleep and wake up with a smile, regardless of the season, whether it's flooding, whether it's tsunami, whether it's drought, I'm your girl. Reach out. And my life is an epitome of that. So thank you so much. It was nice sharing with you. I just want to sign out. I don't know who's there, but I hope who needed to hear is there. So bye. Cheers.